Moscow, Idaho. What is a person of interest? Always the closest people to a victim become a person of interest, and they do so for many reasons. Moscow, Idaho, home to the University of Idaho. 11,000 students, 25,000 residents.
Because anything that we have that we can share from a law enforcement perspective, we will be sharing just as soon as we can, because that's how we can.
This is the press conference from November 20th, 2022.
Please rely on official sources of information, and please be patient. I understand that everybody wishes that this was solved already, but these things take time. It takes time to work through. You heard the stats of all the tips and everything, the interviews and everything that's been done. This takes time for our investigators to work through. So please be patient as we work through this investigation.
Exactly. Things do take time. So how are you or anybody clearing or publicly stating that certain people aren't involved? How is the police department in a position to state these things in a press conference that was conducted on 11/20/2022?
At this time, I'd like to introduce the University of Idaho President Scott Green.
Scott Green, President, University of Idaho. Last name spelled Green, like the color. First, we continue to extend our heartfelt condolences to the families and friends of the victims. As stated earlier, we want justice and appreciate the increased resources from the Idaho State Police and FBI that have been brought to bear on this crime. We fully appreciate and share the frustration of our students, employees, parents, and community members who continue to push for answers. While we wait for answers in the investigation, we've ramped up our security safety practices and are listening to students and supporting them in any way possible. The University of Idaho's primary focus now is on supporting our students and working to meet their varied needs. The police continue to inform us that they believe this was a targeted attack, but we recognize this is not good enough for some of our students who will want to complete their semester remotely until the person who committed the crime is in custody. We are also hearing that some students want to be back on campus and in Moscow because they gain comfort from the structure of classes and being with their friends and professors. All reactions and feelings are valid, and we all process these tragedies differently. We're asking instructors to plan for both sets of students as we finish the semester. We will be communicating decisions early this week so that families can discuss and plan their individual response over the Thanksgiving break. We learned a lot during COVID, and we have many course delivery options our faculty can deploy to meet student needs. Student and employee safety remain our priority. We have increased security patrols on campus since we were notified of this off-campus incident. We have also benefited from increased Idaho State Police presence on our campus, which we are grateful for.
Good afternoon. I'm Ted Williams, Fox News. You all have said that these killings are targeted. Can you share with us why you believe they are targeted killings? And do you know who, if any, of the victims were the actual targets of the killings?
As we stated earlier in the previous press release, or press conference, we believe they're targeted because we take a totality of all the circumstances that we're looking at. Do we know any one person that it was targeted? We're not yet able to say at this point in time due to our investigation, but we still believe that. But we, like I said, we take a totality of everything that we're looking at.
Exactly. You take a totality, and you did not have that on 11/20/2022. Next up, same presser, 11/20/2022. This was a very vague question, but she hits home on some very good points.
Hi, Christina Corbin with Fox News. The male subject whom the women called, has he been ruled out as a suspect or person of interest?
Everything that we have taken from those calls, we have followed up on, we've cleared, and we believe that there's no connection there. We have followed up on, we've cleared, and we believe that there's no connection there. We have followed up on, we've cleared, and we believe that there's no connection there.
Which calls? What has no connection? See, it's a very vague question, so therefore he's able to answer it and be just as vague. What about text messages, Snapchat, Facebook Messenger app? There's other social applications. So again, a very vague question, very vague answer. The presser, though, however, right here turns to complete chaos. But listen closely to what questions make that all happen. What question makes it?
Gotti Schwartz, NBC News. Just following up on the 911 call, you said that you don't believe that's the killer. Can you conclusively rule out the person that called 911 from inside the home as a suspect in this case?
Can you go ahead and just ask that one more time, please?
The person that was inside the home that called 911 that was not one of the roommates. Can you conclusively rule that person out as a suspect at this point?
I don't think I said that it wasn't one of the roommates. I said that it was used with the roommate's phone.
I believe somebody asked if that was the killer, and you said no.
No, that's correct.
Was there someone there other than the two roommates when police responded?
So will you clarify that for me?
You're not confirming a roommate called 911, but you used the roommate's phone. So was there someone else at the home other than those two roommates?
There was other friends that had arrived at the location.
How many? And was that who made the call?
Honestly, I'm not quite sure at this time, to be quite honest.
So on 11/20/2022, they have ruled people out, but they don't know how many people were in the home during the 911 call. This makes complete sense, said no one ever. But that was not even what frazzled the police chief. Check this out.
Do you guys have any idea if the killer's still within the community, or are you looking outside the community for the killer in terms of their physical location?
We are looking everywhere that evidence would lead us. I can't say if the person's here. I can't say what community the person's in. We're utilizing every resource we can to make that location of that individual. And part of that is the safety of our community is paramount, and that's why we brought in the resource that we brought in to keep our community as safe.
The location of the suspect? The way the police chief is speaking right here, it's almost like they are trying to find someone. They're trying to locate someone. The only way you could, quote unquote, rule someone out and speak that way, these officers that did this presser, you have to have the evidence that leads to a different person of interest because of the evidence that you have. That's how you'd be ruling people out.
Do you guys have any idea if the killer's still within the community, or are you looking outside the community for the killer in terms of their physical location?
We are looking everywhere that evidence would lead us. I can't say if the person's here. I can't say what community the person's in. We're utilizing every resource we can to make that location of that individual. And part of that is the safety of our community is paramount, and that's why we brought in the resource that we brought in to keep our community as safe.
Again, listen one more time. This is all about the location of somebody.
Do you guys have any idea if the killer's still within the community, or are you looking outside the community for the killer in terms of their physical location?
We are
In
looking
terms of their
everywhere that
physical
evidence would lead us.
location.
I can't say if the person's here. I can't say what community the person's in. We're utilizing
can't say
every
where this
resource we
person
can
is,
to
as in
make that
you can't
location of that
find
individual.
this person of interest?
And
Did
part
they
of that is
flee?
the safety of our community is paramount, and that's why we brought in the resource that we brought in to keep our community.
Brought in the resources that we did because of their location. So who really did law enforcement clear on 11/20/2022? Jack D. That's who, the long-term boyfriend of Kaylee. John Jack Showalter, what about him? You know, the hoodie guy? Was his location Moscow, Idaho at the time of the murders? He was lurking around prior to the two girls being murdered. Can you give us his geolocation around 3 a.m. that night? The food truck video legit surfaces, and within a day, law enforcement says that guy is not Jack D, and that he was just a friend making sure that the girls got home safe. How did law enforcement come to this conclusion? Where did they get this information from? Did he, Jack Showalter, come forward like Richard Allen right away and say that he saw the two victims that night? When and where did law enforcement talk to John Jack Showalter to obtain this information?
I still believe this attack was done by one perpetrator, and if so, how does one individual kill 4 people at night and not wake up the other 2 roommates?
Our investigation will continue to look at all avenues of that investigation. I cannot disclose any of that information. I don't even know that information at this point in time, and that's why we're continuing to investigate.
You don't know how this happened without the other 2 roommates hearing it or waking up or noticing?
We do not. One more question.
They do not know, they do not know, they do not know. But they know the food truck guy is not a person of interest because he was just being a great guy that night, remember? Sure he was. The early morning. Kaylee was hunted that night and many nights before, but on that night, it ended differently for her. But why? What happened? Why was that night different? This is Truth and Transparency, a home team's production. And remember that everyone is innocent until proven guilty. Until next time, be kind to one another.